Happy Tuesday. It is Tuesday, January 20th, and look who I've got by my side here. It is Mark and Kelly. I wish I was Mark. I'm more like Regis, but anyway, if all of you don't know who I am, that you probably have been in outer space, but I am Wayne Woodyard.
And I'm Christina Collignon.
It's great to be here today. We've got a great show for you today, actually.
We do, yeah. I'm very excited about it.
We're dealing with a few little technical difficulties here. We'll get the YouTube stream going shortly, but we'll be there.
Yeah, but before we do that and get to our panelists, we have two great panelists today from our Los Angeles region. We just kind of recognized the 1-year anniversary from the Palisades and Eaton fires, and so many of our agents really stepped up and were there for their communities, their clients, answering questions, taking on stress. So we have Lauren Ravitz and Hilda Hernandez here. We're going to kind of talk through that. But before we get to our panelists, I do want to remind you all about Operation Gratitude. This is the last week that you can be bringing in your donations. We are creating care packages for our troops, sending them out to our deployed troops. So you can bring socks, dental floss, toothbrushes, Slim Jims. Bring those into your branch office by end of day this Friday. I've heard a lot of offices have a lot of collections already, so make sure that your office is one of those that helps support our Impact Council. We appreciate it, and our troops appreciate it as well. So if you have any questions, you can feel free to email me or our Impact Council. But reminder that those donations are due Friday, and then we're going to start shipping those out the following Monday.
Yeah, and I wondered why those Slim Jims are sitting up in the lobby today. I'm like,
they're not for you. It's not a snack.
I actually almost got one. I haven't had one of those in years.
But yeah, thank you for everyone who's bringing in donations. We're really looking forward to shipping those out to our troops next week and supporting them. But other than that, I think we can jump right in to our panel.
Yes, this is going to be a great panel today. These two agents were just pillars in their communities in helping mobilize and organize anything that their clients needed. And it was just amazing hearing some of the stories before we went on about what they did, actually.
Yeah, and thank you to all agents that stepped up. I know we did a lot of work, not just as a brokerage, but I still see our agents in both the Palisades and Pasadena area and surrounding offices that are still posting support. Yes. They're still a pillar for their community. But we wanted to talk to Lauren Ravitz and Hilda Hernandez, if you guys want to come on camera and just kind of share what that was like as agents and how your lives kind of shifted in a moment, basically. So Lauren, if you don't mind starting, what was that first 24 to 72 hours like for you?
Sure. So the day of the fires, I was actually at an open house of mine of a listing kind of by the Beverly Center, so not where I normally am on the west side. And it was a very windy day. I remember someone on my team was like, there's a wind advisory. Are we working today? And I was like, oh, just from wind.
Just wind.
Yeah. So obviously didn't really know what was quite to come. But I ended up actually leaving our open house early because just something did feel off energetically. And that was the afternoon that everything obviously started to unfold. So I would say the first 72 hours, like you asked, was definitely unprecedented, confusing, stressful. The three of us worked out of my house because our office was closed at the time, and just boots on the ground, so much.
And at that time, were you getting calls, or were you just kind of trying to get your bearings?
So for me personally, I basically typed in 90272 in my phone, and I reached out to every single person I knew in the Palisades, client or not. Just like, what's happening? Are you okay? How can I help you? So that was just my original outreach because, as the night went on and through the next day, we didn't really know what was happening. So just an outreach of, non-solicitation, kindness, empathy, no salesmanship going on. That's where I started.
That's amazing. And Hilda, what about you on the other side?
Yeah, so I live in Pasadena. I'm about 3/4 of a mile south of where of Altadena, where the fires were, and so we were evacuated. And that evening, we actually had dinner plans to eat at a restaurant in Altadena to celebrate one of our fellow agents from Pasadena's birthdays. And it was super windy here. We thought, maybe we should cancel. And then we got a text maybe around 6:15 and said, the fire looks like it's in our backyard. And so at that point, we kind of started texting. Everybody started texting. My kids went to school in Altadena, so we have a lot of friends and family that we know from Altadena. So we started just texting and saying, "Hey, is the fire by your house?" Because we could see it from our front yard. And so there was a lot of group texting going on, just a lot of confusion. No one knew, hey, do we leave now? Do we wait? What's going to happen? We've had plenty of fires where we never think it's going to come down into our community. Our neighbors were new. They said, hey, do we need to pack? I said, I don't think so. This tends to happen and the fires kind of just stay in the mountains. But then after a couple of hours, we realized, it's coming closer than it's ever come before. So a lot of people were panicked, and a lot of the messages were, what do we do? And a lot of the response was, I think we're going to have to pack our cars and just kind of figure out where we're going to go next.
And where did you go? Where were you evacuated to? Were you at a shelter, a friend's house?
We headed south. Everybody we were texting with was trying to find a local hotel that had availability, and there was nothing available anywhere near here. So people started heading further south and further east. We ended up in Alhambra, which is a community maybe about 20, 25 minutes south of us. And we ended up at a friend's house. But people were trying to figure out where they were going to go. Most people found themselves going to other friends and families' homes, and then later were also evacuated from that home. So they were having to move again. I mean, I think no one slept that night for us here in this area, because everybody was texting and trying to figure out, is my house still standing or not?
Wow. So then if you fast forward to maybe say 24 hours after that, and I'm sure you're still having your phone trees, both of you, calling to see what's the status update. Then what was next in your mobilization plans in your head? And you both had no mobilization plans. This was all done right on the fly, correct?
Definitely. For me, it started with a connection to basically what I started for me was a Google Drive where I started putting in available places to go. And I had friends who owned hotels who were giving discounts. And I started basically this Google spreadsheet that I ended up sending out to agents and saying, just put stuff in here and let's start sending it out to people. And I did it with another agent at another company on the east side, and she sent it out to her agents, and we started this like little mini platform that was just an information sharing tool that didn't compensate us. It was nothing about that. It was just a resource for people to find places. And that group that we started, like I think it was January 9th, we are still a very lively group chat. We're called the Lady Realtor Chat. And we are so thankful that we came together at that time, and we've had multiple dinners over the years, and a lot of us didn't know each other. And it was like an East Side, West Side thing that was just great to be an information source for people. And if it was gone, it was gone. We didn't stand by anything, we didn't know what was happening, but just the panic and frenzy of trying to facilitate what people's needs were and trying to match them with a homeowner or an opportunity, and having it come like more from meaning and not money, which is what we tried to do. And that is what I tried to do as just being like the connector that I was, and just, posting Airbnbs on my stories and resources on my stories and, discounts to this or whatever it was. That's where I started. And that's kind of just my fight or flight nature that was natural to me, I would say, in that time frame where we really didn't know which way was up or down.
Yeah,
Wow.
I remember from that time, every time I was logging into social media, I would see updates from you, Lauren, and so many of our other agents, you too, Hilda, just posting. So like you have to be just kind of attached to the news and your group chats, and just that becomes kind of your full-time job, is tracking this and making sure that your clients have the support that they need. So, I mean, it came through to me every time I opened the app. I was like, oh, there's Lauren again posting more resources. So again, thank you for that. But how, Hilda, how about you? Did you have a similar group
Yes.
chat going on? What was your world like?
Yeah, so 24 hours after, I did have several people because they knew I lived close by. I had people who were overseas who said, hey, can you drive by my street? And at that time, streets still were not closed. And so I was able to drive by several people's homes and say, yes, your home is still standing, or no, it's not.
Yeah.
And then after that, it probably took a few days. I wouldn't say it happened in 72 hours, but maybe more like a week, where people were like, oh, wow, what do I do now? And now it's, we have to look for something that's either going to be an Airbnb where we're going to be at least for a couple of months. And so I just started calling everybody that I knew that owned real estate outside of Altadena and just say, hey, do you have any properties available for lease? I started calling friends that have management companies. I started texting other agents or agents that I knew did exclusively, mostly rentals. And then I was just connecting people and posting them on Instagram, texting them. I had maybe like 8 or 9 different management companies, local management companies that had their own websites where they post their rentals and not necessarily in the MLS. And I was just sharing that, and people then just started sharing that. And then people started sharing my phone number, and I had a whole list of people going. And, I was just using anybody that I knew I could use to get housing. My brother's boyfriend was a property manager, and he helped me get many families into housing. And so but I would say that was probably maybe a week or 2 weeks after the fires. And we just jumped in. I had my daughter working with me and calling agents for availability because things were moving so quickly. And, Devin and I were just printing everything available in the MLS and calling, hey, is it available? Is it available? Would you take a family with dogs? They have 2 dogs, 2 cats, and people are very empathetic and trying to find other resources and saying, well, you know what, I don't have anything, but my other friend has a building in Eagle Rock, or, so did a lot of that, a lot of connecting.
We heard those stories of people trying to profit off of this with raising the rents unbelievably, thus the legislation. But were most people empathetic when you called and said, I have a family of 5 with 3 dogs? Were they like empathetic to, at least consider the situation?
For me, yes, overall. I had a situation, for the first, I would say 9 months of this, I didn't take any lease listings. With the price gouging, the vulnerability, the reputation at stake. That was just not something that aligned with me, and I didn't want to be in that position. So I mainly only helped tenants, and I think we did like 27, and we had over 90 people on our interest list. And we ended up having to do a Google intake of people who reached out to us. It was too overwhelming, where we had to go over, someone had like 4 cats, not easy.
No.
So, but we did have a situation where my clients actually moved out early to make space for someone with the fires coming in. And that landlord, who shall remain nameless, is also an agent. And he doubled the rent and price gouged immediately the new people.
That's terrible.
And, I think there was actually, Hilda, I don't know if you remember, there was some like vigilante group that was out there with a website that was reporting properties and agents who price gouged. And you did not want your name on that list, let me tell you.
Wow.
So that was going viral around, and that's where like you really had to think about, what you were doing and staying in the right lane of ethics, with also empathy, with also helping your clients and doing the right thing.
Yeah, it was a scary time. I was trying to connect people together. I didn't want to necessarily have to do anything with the lease or preparing the lease or getting any sort of compensation. I was just like, hey, this person has a property. Here's the phone number, connect. There was a situation with an agent in Glendale, and he was price gouging, and his name got onto that list. And our clients ended up getting that property at a lower price. And I'll tell you, it wasn't the owner who wanted that higher price, it was the agent who
Wow.
wanted that. When we met directly with the owner was like, I didn't want that price. It was, I was okay with the previous price because they had listed the property at a previous price. And then the fires happened and then they increased it by, I don't know, $5,000 or something crazy. And the owner came down on price and then they ended up, putting the agreement together. But it's a shame to say that there are realtors who would do that. It's in a time where there was so much pain and so much fear.
Yeah.
It was sad.
It sounds like, It sounds like a lot of what you two did was obviously advocating for your clients and taking on some of that mental stress from them to, make sure that they don't have to do all the heavy lifting in their brain. Like you took on a lot of that. So what were some of those scenarios that you took over for those clients where you made sure that they could focus on their tragedy and you could handle some of those business moments for them? Lauren, if you want to start.
Sure. I mean, I did FaceTime tours. I prepped properties that weren't ready to lease yet and like physically cleaned with brooms to get them ready and do everything at a faster time frame. I used every relationship possible to be one of 17 showings over at the Fairmont. You know, got my clients the lease in their pajamas 2 days after the fire. And it was a very emotional. My clients at that day hadn't even seen their kids. They lost their home. The parents were at one place, the kids were at another place. They called me in a panic. I'd never met them. They're like, "We'll meet you in the lobby and you'll see us because we'll be in our pajamas, and that's how you'll know who we are." And they had just that first embrace that I had to bear witness to. And I was like, "Hi, I'm Lauren." And I remember when we went to go look at the Fairmont units, there were very few units available. Again, I was one of 17 showings that day. The listing agent was like sleeping at the hotel. He couldn't even go home, working till 11 o'clock at night. And we couldn't go see a unit on one of the floors because the previous showing, the husband threw up in the hallway because he had not yet told his wife that they did not have fire insurance. And so the agent said to me and my clients, "I'm so sorry, I can't go show you this floor because it's a health hazard and this is why." So, I mean, the emotions of those like few weeks and the literal stress that we took on for our clients that we were hearing about and going through, and the devastation and the loss and the awe and shock of it all, it was real. It was really real.
I just can't even imagine. And Hilda, didn't you lose your own home?
I did not lose my
You
own
did not.
home. No,
Oh,
I
good.
no, no, I did not. I'm thankful that I didn't.
Good. What about you, Hilda? Did you have any moments? I'm sure you had lots of moments like that, but I just can't imagine just going through all of that. I've never gone through a fire and lost everything like that. I just can't
I think
imagine.
one of the hardest things was, we mourned for our community and for our friends who lost their homes, and of course, we'll never know exactly how it feels because we're not in their shoes. But every time I showed a property, there were tears. People were just on the verge of, not being able to talk and crying and saying, I've been looking, I can't find anything. And, I remember a situation where the management company had told me, yes, this family's going to get it. I had spoken with the owner of the property. He had a property manager. And then a couple of hours later, I had to call the clients and tell them they did not get it because another family offered them a lot more money to get the property. And, just hearing them cry and say, this feels like we've just been hit again, it was just devastation. I mean, I cried at my desk every day at the end of the day because it was, you felt like you were trying to help and there was only limited places, and and everybody was looking. So it was a very challenging time for a lot of people.
And then once just navigating through those emotions, then they have to deal with insurance issues and how to get reimbursed. And that story about the man who didn't have insurance, that's devastating. But did you become insurance advocates, helping to guide the clients, or finding advocates that you could pair them up with? Because I heard some people had insurance advocates that worked on their behalf and others did it themselves.
Yeah, well, I think that we know that in our business we wear very many hats. I didn't want to wear the insurance hat. I don't think Hilda, you did either. But I had clients that were lawyers that offered their services for free to navigate insurance. Some of the insurance brokers that we work through, they offered to do webinars. We sent out tons of data that, of course, we can't warranty everything that was completely true, but just resources. My accountant lost his home, and he was an amazing resource just for me as a client and for all of his clients that lost homes, about just reminders and tax deferrals and stuff like that. So I just absorbed everything that was sent my way, tried to vet it as much as possible, and then disseminated the information out to people. Again, all the people on my interest list and all the people in my sphere. And I also took a page out of everyone else's book, where I called some of our agents in Montecito after the mudslides. I called random agents in our Boulder office after those fires. And I called them personally and just said, this is who I am. I'm trying to help my community, my people, my clients. What did you do that worked, and what can we do to help? And I thought that was a really helpful conversation, for my practice.
Yeah.
I love that you leveraged your network that way. Obviously, it's awful that we do have people in our network that have had these same situations, but going to someone that's already experienced it is, I think, a genius move on your part.
Well, and you can pay it forward now, because people are going to be
Exactly.
calling the both of you on the next disaster and saying, help me, what can I do?
Which obviously that's
We
the
hope
main.
we hope
we
we
hope there's
hope we don't have
We
another
hope we don't
disaster
have
like
another,
this one.
yeah.
But the goal here today is, what happens when this happens again? What do you wish that you knew in those first few days? What do you wish that you knew when dealing with insurance problems or with the price gouging? How can we set up agents both in our community and
Exactly.
outside for success? So Hilda, is there anything advice-wise that you're okay, looking back, it would have been a lot more helpful if I had this information or if I'd been able to call this person?
I think just stressing to clients that even if you're purchasing your property cash, or if you've paid off your mortgage, to remember to get insurance and get enough insurance, and or review your insurance policy every couple of years, because a lot of people, even though they had insurance, they were underinsured, didn't have enough insurance, or maybe they had California Fair Plan and they never got a secondary policy. So I wish that perhaps I would make that a little more vocal now, and I think insurance is going to be present in a lot of people's minds now. And just recently I spoke with a client who lost her home up there, and she said, I had just seen my insurance agent in December, and I told him I needed more insurance, and he says, now you're fine. And here you were a couple of weeks later, and
Wow.
So just stressing out to people just to make sure their insurance is up to speed. Even when I had another family kind of similar to Lauren's situation, that she heard somebody didn't have insurance. There's a lot of people who didn't have insurance, and I have a family who their insurance had dropped them, and the mortgage company said, I'm going to slap on our insurance, and they said, okay. They never did anything proactive to check to see if the insurance was in place. And this was a couple of years ago. It's actually I think it was about 2 years ago. And the fires came, and they realized the mortgage company never placed insurance on the property.
Oh.
And so here is a family who is, very modest, and they did not have fire insurance.
Wow.
So I wish I would have stressed more often to people, everyone I knew, to make sure you're checking on your insurance policy and your coverage.
So, and from that, I think a lot of these pieces that we're talking about right now are good reach outs right now to your clients, and in the future, about your clients whose homes didn't burn. and what they should do, and how they can learn from what you went through and what everybody else went through. With the clients that both of you had that lost homes, how many decided to rebuild? Is everyone rebuilding, or have they decided it was just too much and they need to move on?
For me, I would say we're kind of at half and half. I had a lot of clients that got their ALE paid out in bulk,
Okay.
and they used that as a down payment and purchased homes quickly because they didn't want to be price gouged. They didn't want to deal with rentals. They figured if they did rebuild, this was like a 3 to 5 year situation anyway. So those people were very fortunate. I've had, I think, 3 calls last week hitting this year mark of people that are now in a place to think about this. They still were navigating insurance. They still weren't sure. Some of them I put in rentals, not for compensation, just through my outreach list, but they came back to me. And I think my clients are like 50-50.
50-50. Interesting. And
Yeah, I would
the
say
ALE is what, for people who don't know what the ALE is?
The additional living expenses, which
Yes.
is what was very interesting in the beginning for us to learn about people's policies, because I had someone with ALE as, at 240,000 that was either supposed to be mapped out between 1, 2, or 3 years.
Okay.
And I had someone with an ALE policy that was 1.8 million.
Wow.
A very overinsured property owner who could spend way more than the 240,000 in 3 years, is a tougher nut to find something for whatever you're accustomed to living in, here on the west side. But 1.8 million, we were looking at rentals at 75,000 a month.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
So
incredible.
everyone's policies were quite different, and the people who were paid out in ALE in advance used that to their advantage to purchase. I was at the Miami, Indiana game last night with someone who is rebuilding. I helped them find their lease by taking over I didn't help them. Like, they took over my client's lease that had already found something, but then I found them something different. So we kind of put them into another one, and they came up to me last night, not my clients, and just said, "Thank you so much for doing this." And we are getting 20,000 a month in perpetuity forever.
Really?
Like, yeah, he has an unbelievable policy. It was a company I had never heard of. He is my accountant, so he's very savvy and smart. But it was like I'd never heard of that. Unbelievable, 20,000 a month until whenever they're rebuilding, but they're still fighting with insurance, and things are very vague. And I think that there is some vulnerability of people who are not fighting back to insurance and understanding that insurance is trying to offer you the path of least resistance and trying to offer you the lowest amount of money. And a lot of people are taking it because they don't have an advocate, they don't have representation. I'm not talking about an agent, I'm talking about a lawyer, or an insurance adjuster, and they don't have anyone fighting for them to actually get more.
Interesting. And Hilda, what were you going to say?
No.
The ALE.
I don't know. It was
The
at the
ALE.
beginning of the other conversation, but
Well, I think we were talking about how many of your clients are rebuilding or staying, and I don't think we heard from Hilda's clients yet.
Actually, Altadena, there's a lot of people who are rebuilding. I would say most of the people that I know are rebuilding, or they haven't made a decision. They're still in a rental, and they're just trying to adjust to rebuilding, or what they're going to do next. I've got several clients that are up there in age, and they're scared because they don't want to rebuild, but they're also now in a situation where the insurance companies are pressuring them to tell them, are you going to rebuild, or what are you going to do next? Because they're scared they're going to lose their allowance for their housing, their monthly housing. And I'm talking about people who are in their 80s and their 90s.
Wow. That's sad.
It's a big decision.
Huge. So when you were going, this is just such an emotional thing. How did you gauge on how much information that you could be sharing with people? I guess when they're in, I guess it's just one of those intuitive things of knowing when somebody's had too much, and you just need to get the information to them gently.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, our sole purpose, for me at least, was to find housing for people. I can't do everything. I couldn't provide information on paying your mortgage, to fire relief, to insurance, to remediation, I mean, there's just so much. We started to create a vendor list that was very helpful for people, that talked about remediation crews, that gave contractors and designers and architects, like expediters. Here on the west side, Crest Real Estate led a forum on expediting permits. So that's kind of where I went for my zone. But ultimately, like, my path forward was just finding housing for people, and then secondary information to all the other things that I had within my network to provide.
Interesting. And Hilda, what about you?
Yeah, so I think I tend to be a little too emotionally vested with people. And so I found that a little bit challenging, but I did have several friends that lost their homes and I saw how much they were suffering. So I was trying to be ultra sensitive. I still am, to be ultra sensitive to what I say. I learned at the very beginning that some words were very triggering. And so just being really cautious with what you say to clients and friends that lost their homes. But I did do a lot wherever I could. If it was, making a phone call, sending an email, scanning a document, I just tried in whichever way. If they called me and said I need a contractor, or even going with them, I went sometimes with them, and mostly just for support. A lot of these places that I was showing, their insurance companies did have someone who was negotiating the lease on their behalf. And so, but they weren't coming out to show them the property. So if the property was vacant or if it needed to be, an appointment needed to be scheduled, I did a lot of that, and I still would show up and meet them there, even though I knew I wasn't going to be the one negotiating the contract. And people knew that I wasn't going to, be getting any sort of compensation or anything like that. And that was okay with me. I just wanted to help and show up for people.
Yeah.
And speaking of contractors, how is that whole situation going? Has this kind of switched into you're the resource now for reputable contractors that aren't price gouging? Or how is that whole situation? Because we've heard those horror stories as well.
I mean, not for me. I typically try not to recommend contractors, although I do have a good friend who has a construction company and who's doing several properties for several families that I know. And I did recommend him because I know he's a good guy and he's a family guy, and I've known him for years. He's actually a realtor with Berkshire. So that's what I did, but I typically do not recommend contractors. And I tell people I don't, because sometimes they do a good job for someone and then sometimes they don't do a good job for someone else. So I try to stay away from that. But if it's like a designer or, someone that I know or someone that a client had a good experience with, I will go ahead and say, hey, this is what I have, but I haven't dealt with them firsthand.
What about in the Palisades, Lauren?
I recommended several contractors to my clients that are all using them. This one contractor signed, I think, on 11 projects the first 2 months of the fires, mainly in the alphabet streets, and she needed to scale up with her business and hire a lot of people. She's a female contractor and does incredible work. So 2 of my clients are working with her. And then there's another contractor that did a lot of work in Westwood that lived in the Palisades and lost his house and is also doing more. And I think it all, like, there's major group chats going on. You can vet these people in 2 seconds. So all these new WhatsApp groups that have come on like this street, that street, everyone is talking. And it's so now efficient to vet these guys and girls, all
That's
these
awesome.
contractors. It's really, really easy. And at your fingertips, and everyone is chatting, everyone is chatting about, oh, this lot sold for this, or they got rid of this lot for, pennies on the dollar. Like, oh my God, it is like viral, all these conversations that these streets and, areas are having, and everyone is really in the know. And I think in our tight community of the Palisades, like, you can't do someone wrong. You can't do someone dirty.
The word of mouth is very powerful.
Very
Exactly.
powerful.
But Hilda did bring up a good point. Like, when other agents, if they do find themselves in those situations, do you have a caution? Like, try to protect yourself as an agent when you are recommending things. Like obviously there's certain topics you don't want to pretend to be an expert in. Were there any topics that you were like, I can't help you with that, I can lead you in the right direction? Is there anything that agents should be, wary of, because you want to be there, you want to help, but you also want to make sure that you're not giving bad information and protecting yourself? Hilda, did you have any experiences like that?
Well, we had, and I'm sure Palisades did as well, we had a resource center here in town. And so everybody knew where to go. Those who didn't knew quickly. I will say social media has been a game changer for information. There were so many groups, even now, I mean, there's so many groups that were created after the fires that I stopped trying to follow all of them because there was just way too many, and there was and then I think people just kind of stuck to a few that were kind of bigger groups. And so, I never tried to answer something that I didn't know. I would say, I don't know. And when we were at the resource center, people there didn't know, when you had insurance agents there who were also very green, who perhaps hadn't experienced something like this. They also didn't know the answer to questions. So that was a little frustrating. But I didn't try to answer something that I didn't know because I didn't know.
Interesting. And I think, Lauren, you had mentioned insurance. Yours, like, one thing you never wanted to get into was insurance, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think to Hilda's point, like, if we didn't know it, we would get you the answer. That was my attitude. And, always referring back to the accountant can't answer those kinds of, questions about taxes for people. But I involved a lot, like everyone at California Title. When people were talking about deeds and, spouses and interspousal swaps and family multi-generational, like changing, title, like I just involved our affiliates, and had them reach out. Bill Thomas was amazing with everyone. So that was also, it's like, we are a big company. We are a big, robust network, and someone here in our family is going to have the answer to your question, and we'll direct you to whoever that will be.
How this whole experience, you never thought you would go through this. No one, I don't think, ever could. But how has that changed the way you view your role? I think both of you probably in your lives are wonderful human beings that want to help, on top of being wonderful, great agents. So what came out of this that kind of changed your role that you feel as an agent? Lauren, we'll start with you.
Okay, sorry, my phone's ringing.
Oh, that's okay.
For me, I feel that in general, my role has always been a connector, like in my entire life, my friend group, just who I am as a person. So when those first 3 months hit and, kind of active listings were paused, or other properties in other locations did move on, and we were in a position to just work for free and do whatever we needed to do, I think that felt good to me. I mean, it was long hours. I wasn't present as a mom. I wasn't present as a wife. I wasn't my best self. And I was planning to go to New York for the Inman conference in January. And I felt tremendous guilt leaving LA and going there. I ended up bailing on the conference and going to see musicals every night and being with my friends. Because those first 3 weeks of January were terrible and very, very challenging. And we didn't know what the future held for the West Side, for real estate, for my business, for my team. Are we selling another house again? It was a little bit like PTSD from COVID. And what kind of year are we going to have? And I just always had like the feeling that all the work I'm putting in, all the hours I'm doing, like I got, calls for interviews, whatever, it's all just going to come back because I'm just going to be me. And I'm just going to help whoever I need to help, whatever, it doesn't matter. Go stay at this hotel, go to this Airbnb, do whatever you need to do to make your family feel safe. And I'm just here as an advocate. And I felt like that's what that's what propelled me forward to have such a great year last year on what started off terribly.
That's,
Yeah.
that's awesome that you just went and just had to just like chill and get out of the moment. I can imagine the guilt though that you felt leaving everyone here. Hilda, what about you?
I'm always a believer that things come back to you. And so I always give my time wherever I can. I always do. And so I just felt like it was the right thing for me to help whomever I could, as many people as I could. And even if that meant not really working and selling real estate, right? I thought, I wasn't getting paid just like Lauren, and I was just trying to desperately find housing for people as much as I possibly could. And at some point I did say, well, it's now March and I got to sell some stuff because I also have to live. And so, but I just felt like it was the right thing to do, and I would do it all over again if I needed to, and more if I could.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they've always said that disasters really reveal who we are as professionals, and the cream rises to the top.
Yeah.
And I will say, I just want to send a shout out to, I know so many agents in our community that helped someone, right? Because it was really, the community just needed help. And I can't say I know that there was one realtor out there who didn't help someone, whether it was trying to find housing or did a fundraiser or, gave clothes or meals or whatever it was. I will say that I know that sometimes agents don't get credit or for what they do in our communities, but I will say that realtors shined through these areas of disaster. So, realtors are shakers and movers, and that's what we did.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, one question I know we want to talk about is how, as agents, because you do shine for your communities, what are a couple tips that we can give agents that it's like if something happened today, tomorrow, again, we're not hoping for that, but what would be like 2 or 3 things that you can at least have mentally or physically prepared that you think will at least, help some of that mental stress that you guys are carrying for your agents, you can relieve yourself and also be there for them? Is there anything specific that you're like, okay, today go and do X, Y, and Z, and even if nothing ever happens, at least you'll have that mental security that, at least you have some sort of game plan. Lauren, do you have anything?
I think one thing is obviously just in terms of organization and systems is having all of your properties that you represent a seller or a buyer, all of those files digitally available. That's like key and not a big deal. Create a Dropbox link, create a Google Drive. Do not have it saved on your computer. Have it in the ether. And that way, when a disaster, God forbid, happens, you can send everyone copies of files, net closing sheets, whatever. That's one thing. Second thing is calm, cool, collected. This too shall pass. You are here as a sounding board. You're here to help people freak out, spill over on you, yell at you, beat you up, like all the things that we do. This is not about us. It's about them and making them feel seen and heard. And I would say the third thing that we've come out of this is with like a really robust vendor list. And that is ever changing and ever growing. And I think having that is really, really helpful for us.
Yeah, because we don't think about the remediations and everything. I mean, I can't even imagine. And you both have probably learned to be land brokers now, because I'm sure you have. I think John Clausen was saying that, now you know how to value land. And so there's something that came out of it that a lot of people didn't know how to do before.
Yeah.
Hilda, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think Lauren's answer was great. I think really, I don't know that anything really prepares you for disaster. And I think if we had another disaster, we probably would also freak out a little bit and try to figure out what it was. But I think just having some sort of an action list. One thing that I learned is that we need to document everything that we have in our homes, right? No one ever thought about what kind of stress, and I know this because I know plenty of friends who are still working on their list of things in their home. And I don't think about going through my home and taking a video of everything in my home. So I think I would say to everyone, just the general public and for ourselves, whenever we're talking to clients, hey, take a video and inventory of your property and keep it somewhere because you don't know when you're going to need it. And I know that that is something that's causing a lot of people stress. People tell me I woke up this morning and I thought about three more things, or I thought about my baking dishes, or I thought about the cleaning supplies that I didn't put on the list. You know, and these things, I mean, are so stressful for people. I wish the insurance companies would just maximize and give people the max amount of money that they can without having to have people, you know, itemize where did you buy your rice? Did you buy it at Trader Joe's? Did you buy it at Ralph's? Where did you get it? It's just ridiculous. So I would say take an inventory of your home and keep your documents digitally saved somewhere. Insurance policies, birth certificates, you know, things that are of value also have a value system for them because that is causing a lot of stress.
Yeah, that's in preparation for today. I did a little research on that one especially, and there was this app that looks like it's one of the best out there called HomeZada, HomeZada, and it does exactly what you just said. It pre-populates the rooms in a house, and then all you do is take the photos, and it helps identify things with AI even. And then you can add different values to it. You can put all your documents there, your mortgage documents, your insurance documents, everything's in the cloud. So if that happens, they say if you have it completely filled out, you can send that inventory list directly to your insurance adjuster. You know, because we all forget, you know, we forget, where did we buy that sofa? Was it at, you know, Restoration Hardware? Did we get that at, you know? And
well, it's because you never think you're going to need it, right? You never think you're going to need a list like that.
Yeah.
So
I bet a lot of new business opportunities and apps probably arose from this devastation, and you know, logging up to insurance, you know, new insurance portals where you can do that.
Yeah, and I think checklists for agents to have for their clients too. Just from today's checklist, we could take the recording of this and have AI generate what should agents do in a disaster, and then have a checklist of everything.
And what should you be, reaching out to tell your clients? If you do one thing this month, make sure it's X. Like it's check your insurance policy.
It sounds like check your insurance policy and make sure you're not underinsured.
Clean your brush around your property.
Yeah, I think the new Zeroscape law, that's coming up is, regulations are gonna change a lot of that. So, and especially in the fire-prone areas.
And preventatively, there's a lot of people now adding sprinklers to their roofs.
Yeah, interesting.
Generators, there's a lot of upgrading going on right now.
Yeah, because when you think about it, when the power fails, you don't have anything to run the sprinkler, right? Or the pressure fails.
That was the big thing. We were collecting water bottles for similar reasons, is making sure you have, water that you can drink as well. So.
Yeah.
Well, is there, as we're wrapping up the show, is there one thing that you would want to say looking back that you wish you'd known, or one thing that you'd want to have people outreach to their clients? I know we've kind of talked on some of those topics, but as we're wrapping up, anything we didn't touch on that you think is really important? Hilda, do you want to, if there's anything?
I think just being there for your clients. At the 1 year mark, I texted a bunch of people, and I didn't expect anyone to respond. I just wanted people to know that I was thinking about them and that I was here. And that was it. It was just a short message. If they were close to me, I love you, I'm thinking about you. And it was really heartwarming just for those that did respond, and some didn't, and that's okay too. Just people were sending me, their foundations, or people were sending me a flower that was growing on their property, so just reaching out. I think just reaching out and hearing people. We don't have to give an opinion, but just more listening and knowing that we are here, and we're not here just to sell their property, but we're here also to just hear them out. I've got people who call me all the time and say, I'm not going to sell my property. I just want to know what it's worth. And that's, I'll I'll go and sit with the client, tell them what it's worth, and then they want to just tell me how they're feeling, and that's okay too.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, Hilda, did the insurance companies want a value from a realtor or an appraiser on the property, or is it only based on what it was insured for?
I did not get any requests like that. Recently, I did get a request from someone who was filling out their kid's college application and, or sorry, their FAFSA application, their financing application, and they did ask for the property value. And so they started this particular property started the rebuilding process. And I told her I wasn't sure what value they were looking for. Are they looking for the value of the land value, which I could provide? But because construction had started, I told them to check with their accountant. And they did, and they got an answer, to their question as to how they should price it. And basically the answer was, go with the lowest value for now. And as your construction continues, the value of your property will change. But I did not have anybody specifically ask me for their value of their property for their insurance purposes.
Interesting.
I had a call this week from California Fair Plan. Again, I'm not trying to be an insurance renegade for anyone, but I did have several clients ask me if I could help them potentially get more ALE or extended ALE. And I did. I got them 3 more months. And I explained that my clients were elderly. They needed to find a 1-story home to replace their current home. Multiple offers, primary bedroom on the 2nd level. It's been very, very challenging this year to find them a home. And they needed more time and they needed more money. And I heard from them that I got it.
Wow.
And that felt really good. I don't want to advertise that
That
do
is
for other
awesome.
people.
Superstar.
But the California Fair Plan lady called me. We had a really nice, honest talk. I wrote a letter, all truthful, and they got more money.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And speaking of money, we all hear that FEMA and the Red Cross come in when, we see that on all disasters. Was FEMA helpful and the Red Cross to everyone in the beginning?
I can't speak to that personally. I can just say that my clients had to pay extra to have their lots cleared to their satisfaction.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they had money. They had money from insurance to do so. I actually had one this week where she sent me a video and said what she's, I don't have it listed, but she might want to sell it. So she's just asking me. They didn't remove the wall. They didn't remove the steps. They, left this here. This doesn't look very good. And I'm like, you're right. It's not level. And if you're going to sell it or build on it, you want to make it as desirable, as flat, as safe as possible. And if insurance gave you the money to do so and, they didn't do it properly, you should do it.
Interesting. Okay. Anything else from any parting words to our agents as we wrap up here today about just hope they don't have to go through what you did?
Yeah, I think that our offices all are so collaborative, and especially our personal office, which merged with Palisades. We physically lost our office. Our manager lost his home. Agents throughout our entire, 2 cohorts. It was a really stressful time, and I think just having grace and compassion and just doing the right thing always stands the test of time.
And I know your parents are watching today here, and they should be so proud of you, Lauren. They've done you're just amazing. And
that was cute.
Anything from you, Hilda? Last words?
No, I hope we don't have to go through something like this ever again, because I think it's going to be a stressful memory for everybody every time we think of it. And it's going to take a lot of time to feel normal again, and whatever normal is going to look like in the future. And so I hope that agents that are on here that have not experienced something like this, that you don't have to experience something like this. And that perhaps things are put into place where we don't have all these homes being burned like they did.
Yeah.
I was a little worried on talking about all of this, just thinking it might be kind of heavy, but I actually feel good listening to both of you about there are great people in the world, you know, and you did great things for the community. So I don't feel good for all the loss that happened, but you two, I think, were the two shining lights on each side of LA to bring
there were a lot of
light
beautiful stories and a lot of good, a
Yeah.
lot of good out there. And
More good than bad.
Yeah.
absolutely, I agree. I think that was the beauty that came from this, is
Yeah.
the beauty of community and the beauty of people helping others.
That's what I'm taking away, is community as agents is so important. Thank you both, and thank you to all other agents that stepped up. I know there's so
Oh,
many
yes.
agents we could have had on this panel, but we're so grateful for the information that you shared and for everyone that stepped up. So thanks for taking the time to share your
and
experience.
taking time out of your busy schedule. And just so everyone knows, we are dark next week, so we will be seeing you. Brent, hopefully, will be seeing you back in February.
You won't have to see us again.
You won't have to see us. I know Brent was sad he couldn't be here today. He had another engagement, but anyway, he will be back in February for you all.
Yep. Well, thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Hilda. And thanks for everyone that watched. And we'll see you in February back on Go Live for another great show.
Awesome, guys. Thank you. Thank
Bye.
you. Cheers. Bye.